Should couples be financially independent, or is it okay to rely on a partner's income for the Okay, sorry. Should couples be financially independent, or is it okay to rely on a partner's income for financial stability?
For a guy, if he's gonna be, because I've done phone sessions with guys that get themselves in these kind of positions where they walk away from a lucrative career to do something else, start a business. Maybe they've got a bunch of capital, and then because oftentimes what happens, especially for first time entrepreneurs, is that they always underestimate how much money they're going to need, and they always underestimate how much time it's going to take to make the business successful. And so they have unrealistic expectations. They think, oh, 12 months, it'll be successful, I'll be making money, 2 years, whatever it happens to be. And then 3 years later, you're still not really making any money, and you're constantly taking money from your nest egg or your capital that you have saved up. And so where guys get themselves into trouble, because I just did a video newsletter recently, is they go through a tough time financially, and where like oftentimes like there was another one I did in the past year where the guy wanted to take the equity out of their home and use it to put in a business, and so he shared some of the things in his email that he was thinking about doing with this. I think it was tea or something like that he was going to get into, and based on what his expenses were and how much he was going to be able to take out, and plus how much he was actually making, he was going to walk away from that job. The numbers didn't make sense. And so his marriage is going real well, and his wife is getting worried and getting stressed out, and she doesn't feel safe because he's basically about to take on a much bigger loan to take out on against the family home, and so the payment's going to be much higher. And keep in mind, the payment's going to be higher, and he's no longer going to have an income because he's going to stop working for somebody else and work exclusively for himself. And based on what his numbers were, I was like, you need to phase into that. It's like you need to build this business in your spare bedroom and get it to the point where you're profitable, you're making money, it's growing, and the time to leave your job and do this side hustle full time is when you're making enough, and you working for somebody else keeps you away from growing the business to the next level and getting to the point where your income from your business exceeds what you were making working for someone else. And so once he went through that process and sat down with his wife, it totally put her at ease because he wasn't going to, make a much higher payment. He was going to take all their equity out of their house. And there's been other instances where the guys wanted to sell the house and take the equity, not work, and put it into a business. And because obviously women want to feel safe and comfortable. And if you're going to do something that's, especially when you got kids and you got bills and commitments, maybe you got them in private school, that potentially can make all that income go away, they don't feel very safe. They don't feel very comfortable. And so this was creating a lot of friction. And he kind of had the attitude, oh, I'm the man, I'm the head of the household, and I'm going to do this. And she's like, I'll go along with whatever you want. But she didn't feel good about it. And then, because I've been a lifelong entrepreneur, once he shared what he wanted to do, I was like, it's not a good plan. So there's no strategic planner once said to me, there's no such thing as a bad idea, only bad plans. And so he had a good idea, and he was selling his product, but it was nowhere near the place that he could do that stuff full time. And so you just got to have a much better plan if it's an entrepreneurial thing. If it, the flip side is, say you're both working, because that happens a lot. You're both graduated college. Typically people when they're 25, 26 years old, they've got they're done with college for a few years. They're no longer getting money from mom and dad. And maybe they got a car payment, they got a house, maybe they furnished it with all their own furniture. Sonny's chewing on one of his toys, so if you hear some crinkling in the background, that's what that is. But so by the time the average human being is an adult and has an apartment, has a car, and they got their own TV, and they got furniture, and they got pictures on the wall, and they're kind of established, what's going to happen is you're about 24, 25 years old. And so you get together, you date, you get married, and then you have kids. Typically, the woman is going to be a stay-at-home mom, and so her income is going to go away. And so you need to do your numbers, obviously, based on what your new income is going to be without the wife's salary. And so for the guy is taking everything to pay to feed and raise and house his babies, along with to feed and house his wife and provide clothes and make sure the mortgage payment is paid for, make sure she's got a car to drive typically, that the school's paid for, that the soccer activities are paid for, that kind of thing. So that's a big thing for couples, especially when someone wants to start a business. It's always better to kind of start it as like a side hustle, have it in your spare bedroom or your garage or whatever. And once it is profitable and making you good money, and it's maybe making half or 60% of what you're making in your job, and being able to work full time in it would enable you to increase the revenue to where you can replace your old job, then that's when you move. Because a lot of people, and I did this when when I started my first business in real estate, I borrowed 50 grand on my credit cards. I quit my job at Syntex Rooney, and I had no cash flow at that point. I had additional debt because I had bought two properties. Now I got two additional mortgage payments. I got power to keep the power and the lights on. I got water to water the lawn. I've got construction costs. I got closing costs. So it's constantly outlaying money to fix these things up. And you don't get your cash back until you sell it and you have a closing. And after about 3 months of that, I realized that I was going to run out of money in a few months. And I got a mortgage to pay. I was married at the time. And it's, you don't want to stress your wife, your family out. So I ended up doing was talking my way into a job with the company I was buying my foreclosure properties from, so I could learn a lot more about the business, the other side of the business that I didn't know, the financing side, the acquisition side, how to find these houses, how to negotiate the deals, how to finance them to the end users and all that stuff. And so I changed my business approach where I just kind of burned the boats and quit my job at Rooney. But reality set in that, I only had 50, 60 grand, I think it was, that I was able to borrow on my credit cards back at the time. And that would get me 4 or 5 months down the road with buying two houses, making mortgage payments, making my existing mortgage payment, my car payment, the lawn payment, the pool service, the bottled water. I mean, all the stuff that we had bills for. And so it's sometimes you have to adjust your plan, but it always takes way more money than you think. If you think it's going to take 2 years to make it successful, it'll probably take 8 or 10. If you think it's going to take $100,000 to make the business a success, probably is going to end up taking $300,000 or $400,000. And so everybody always underestimates how expensive it is to start a business, and they tend to overestimate how quickly they can get it done. I mean, all the success that I had in business when I got into what I'm doing now, it's like I slept on my dad's couch for 4 years. I originally thought I was going to be there 6 months, and I wasn't making a lot of money, and for about 10 months I waited tables to bring extra money in until I figured things out. And then it was just kind of like a long slog of doing videos, of writing articles. I was doing everything myself back in the day, and eventually it took off and it did well enough that I was able to get my own place. And then it just, as I continued to grow the revenue, I slowly kind of got back to the lifestyle that I was used to before, back when I was in real estate doing well. But I've been a lifelong entrepreneur. And like I said, the biggest thing that's always shocking is that you have an idea, you have a plan of how you think things are going to go, but the reality is it's a lot harder, takes a lot longer, and way more money. So always know your downside risk and everything, and never risk more than you can afford to lose. And dudes that think that they're going to be able to take some equity out of their house and do nothing for a matter of months, and then they'll be making tens of thousands of dollars a month in profit. It's like that like never happens.
So I have a question. If a couple is dating, do you think that they should have joint bank accounts like together?
Well, I've got friends that have been with their wives 30 years and they suck with money. They can't balance the bank statement, and they just give her all the money and try, they look at the bank statement occasionally, but, paying bills and all that stuff, making sure the taxes are done. They suck at it. And I remember there was one of my first clients that I got when I got in this business. That was something that after he got married and had kids, he was in the military, and his wife was great with numbers and bookkeeping and making sure all the bills were paid. and he called me and did a joint phone session with he and his wife. And because when they got married, they came to, I lived in Orlando at the time, they came to visit me in Orlando because he wanted to introduce me to his bride. And she was a sweetheart, really cool woman. He was one of those guys that, he punched above his weight. He got a woman that most people look at him and are like, what's she doing with that dude? And he was a great guy. He was a good husband, became a good father eventually. They had a bunch of kids together. And so the marriage was going great, and she was paying all the bills and everything. And she put him on a budget. She's like, you get X amount of dollars a week to buy lunch or whatever. And he wasn't happy with the budget and the money he was getting and stuff. And so he's like, I'm going to take it. I'm the man of the house. I should be doing this. And so he takes it over, and just, he was always kind of robbing Peter to pay Paul. He'd spend too much, and then he would hold off paying the phone bill or the electric bill or whatever. And so it would freak his wife out, because all of a sudden the cell phones would stop working, or she'd get a letter saying the power is going to be turned off tomorrow unless you pay the electrical bill. And then there's not enough money in the bank account or whatever, because he spent too much money because he wasn't following a budget. And so he called me because in fully expecting me to, to totally side with him. And because he's also mad because she wasn't having sex with him either, because she didn't feel safe, because she went from running everything great, running a tight ship, all the bills are paid. She felt safe. She felt comfortable. Everything's perfect. The credit card, everything's paid. And then he starts running it, and she doesn't know what's going to get shut off next, or if somebody's going to show up, wanting to repo the car or whatever. Because he also would not tell her things, and plus he was just bad at numbers, bad at bill paying and all that stuff. And so as we were talking, I just said, dude, she's better at it than you are, and you're mad and getting angry. She doesn't want to sleep with you. She doesn't feel safe. When she was running, she felt safe, and you guys were fucking like rabbits. And now it's like you're barely touching each other, and she doesn't know what's going to happen next. And it's your job to make her feel safe and comfortable. And quite frankly, you suck at it. You should look at the bank statement, and see where the money's going and stuff like that. And so he did. He gave it back to her, and she turned things around in a matter of weeks. And he had to kind of swallow his pride a little bit, because he just sucked at it. He was terrible with numbers, and his wife was great at it, and she ran the household. They had a bunch of kids. She was a stay-at-home mom. She felt safe when he came home. She jumped into his arms. It's like but that was a big hiccup. It created a lot of problems because he was being stubborn. He was being alpha. I'm in the army after all. What are you gonna tell me? And but once he turned it back over to her, because it was the right decision. It was a smart thing to do.
Yeah. When I was married, I wasn't working, so that's what I did too. I would because we were young too. My husband would just go out, buy beer, so I'm like, why are you spending? That's our grocery money. And he was in the military, and we're young, and he's just this is first his second year, so he's not making that much money. And then he would just spend it, and I'm like, no, you can't just be eating out all day. I'll make food. You have to come home and eat the food I make, not go out and eat fast food every day, when you have a break. I was like, I'll make food for you each day, but you can't just keep spending money that we have to save that we don't have.
Yeah, but if you're going to turn your bookkeeping over to your girl, she's got to be really good at it. Because, you talk about joint bank accounts. If you have a girl that has no self-control and she's just always spending money, my ex-wife, I loved her to death. She was a great wife, but she had no self-control. She grew up, she was a little spoiled. Her parents were wealthy, and her mom and her were they constantly went shopping together and just spent tons of money. And when we were married, she would take checks from our checking account, and there was this dude that came in, and there was this he had this little catalog, and there'd be bird cages or flower pots or just different knickknacks for your house, kind of like a home goods kind of thing. And the stuff that was in it was pretty cool, but she'd go through this catalog and just end up spending more money than she was even making. and writing checks out of the bank account. I see this. It's like, and then she's eating into my money, and I had to stop her from doing it. And I think eventually I just got
A
gave her
fair.
her own bank account, and then her check got deposited in the main one, and put her on an allowance just because she, like I said, if your girl's terrible with math and money, and if she's got access to it and can't exercise self control, she'll empty your bank account. I knew a guy that when I was in real estate, he was a very successful broker, and he and his wife had a lot of investment properties. And this was before just before the crash happened, and was it 07, 08, when the real estate market blew up. And he was always bragging. He was kind of arrogant. He was always bragging about how great his wife was, and they were college sweethearts, and they were, Christian and perfect. And we got the Dodge minivan, and we're just so awesome. I'm a successful real estate guy, and always kind of bragging about it a little too much. And then um, his wife cleaned out the company bank accounts, took all the cash out of their
Oh
personal
God.
accounts. And then I guess because she was also an officer, she quit claimed a lot of the properties over to herself and just like took everything and left the dude high and just stabbed him in the back the worst possible way. Took everything and dipped out on him basically. And then he ended up working at the mall somewhere. And this guy was making six figures, very successful, working at the mall. I think he works in a men's store, helping guys with clothes or something like that. And then he got up in the pickup community. He got really big into the mystery method and stuff like that. And at the time, I think he was probably late 30s, probably early 40s. That I remember we would see him downtown. He'd be out every fucking night of the week trying to pick up girls. He had a little rotation going, and he was so proud of himself. And I saw a few of the girls he was hooking up with, and I was like, he was digging them. But I mean, the bottom line is he's constantly out every night chasing ass, trying to improve his skill and get over it. And it's like it kind of crushed him. He never recovered. He never got back into real estate either because he could have done really well this last trip around with the real estate market exploding. But that was a dude that put himself in a position to just get absolutely destroyed financially by his wife because he wasn't paying attention. He just was trusting and gullible, and that's part of why he kind of went to the extreme and kind of lived like a broke college student. Even though he's kind of like I can't remember, he had 3 or 4 kids, I think, young kids, but his wife had cleaned him out, and so he's working his BS job at the mall, and just so he can chase ass literally 7 nights a week, and he got pretty good. I mean, he was pretty smooth to watch him out at the bars and the places in downtown. And but that happens. I had another friend that they had a multi-million-dollar house, and they had investment properties, and she was going to keep the main house, and he was going to keep the investment properties. That was the deal they worked out verbally. And what does he do like a dummy? Just goes and signs a quitclaim deed, gives it to her. And so now she owns the house, even though he's still on the mortgage for half the mortgage payment. So he's legally obligated to pay the mortgage, but now he has no ownership right to it because he signed a quitclaim deed before the settlement agreement was signed. And then so after he signs this over to her, when he gets the papers and stuff, she wanted half the investment property. She's like, hey, we agreed to this. And then we go to the judge. The judge's like, hey, you signed the quitclaim deed. And so he ended up having to give her half of his investment properties as well. And she later told him, she's just like, I just wanted to make it so you couldn't afford to have another family.
That's messed up.
And she came from a very wealthy family. Their family makes almost $100 million a year. They have a big company, and so she had really good attorneys. And I was like, dude, why didn't you call me? He's like, ooh. It's like, because I was a real estate broker. I was, you do not sign that. But he was trusting. He's like, hey, we got kids together. She wouldn't screw me over. So, even in business, I had 2 business partners. It was better having separate business accounts for each division of the company. So it's a smart thing to do. It's joint accounts. I personally keep things separate like that. It's just better. And you look at somebody like famous people, like somebody like a Billy Joel, who in the 70s and the 1980s was like one of the biggest recording artists in the world. Tens of millions of dollars just flowing into the bank account through, record sales, music, merchandise, his touring. The majority of his career, where he made the majority of his money, he gets into their like early mid 90s, and then he's trying to buy something, and they're like, "Oh, your card's been declined." He's like,
What?
"Oh, card's been I'm fucking Billy Joel. What? Like card's been declined." Or trying to get something out of his bank, and he's like, "There's no money in there." He's like, "What?" And then so he starts looking around, going to the bank, and like the bank accounts are empty. Goes into his safety deposit boxes, and there's all these IOU, $100,000. You know, so he had turned all of the managing of his money over to his ex brother-in-law from his first wife, I think it was. And what happened was this brother-in-law he was just an idiot. He took his hundreds of millions of dollars in money and put it in all these deals that went bad, these businesses that the guy didn't know what he was doing, and then plus he just pissed a lot of it away and wasted it. And so you imagine Billy Joel, he's got kids now because with his wife Christy Brinkley at the time. He's like, I should be coasting now at this point in my life, and now I found out that like every penny that I ever had had in essence been stolen, embezzled, and just pissed away on bad business deals. And I saw that, and I think it was behind the music. And so that's another extreme. If you don't pay attention to your money, whether it's your girl or your business partner or your bookkeeper, it's like there's so many examples of people that got fleeced. So no matter what you do, you should always look at the bank statements. You should always look at your retirement accounts. You should always know what money is going where, because